We are born into a world that from the very first moment is telling us how to behave. From our initial breath, we are conditioned and molded into a way of being, often pulled one way or another. As we journey through our lives, we are subject to daily stress and the pressures of expectation and responsibility. We can become anxious and fearful, often dwelling in the past or worrying about the future, rarely enjoying the present. How can we learn to lead a more peaceful life? How can we remain in alignment when tossed and turned by the unpredictable nature of life's challenges? And how can we take ownership of our lives? In today's world of increasing complexity and uncertainty, where technology is replacing human connection, we learn from the age-old practice of mindfulness how to remain fully engaged in the present moment. By consciously directing our attention and, without judgment, encouraging a moment-to-moment awareness of thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and the surrounding environment, we become a witness to the mind. And we can then enjoy the gift of the golden present. Mindfulness is no longer hidden in ancient spiritual texts, monasteries, and ashrams, but is practiced by millions of people the world over. Join us as we awaken to the power of the present moment and the magic that enables us to make peace with who we are, right now, in this moment.
Daya, you're a yoga instructor and you've been teaching prenatal yoga for some time now. How long is it now?
I started teaching in '95 when I was pregnant with my daughter Rohana, and I've been teaching for a long time, and then I took a short break when I started working and she was much older, but then I've resumed the classes, so all in all 22 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was pregnant, I was coming to your classes, so I know how wonderful they are. And I think, especially towards the end of the class, you have a period of time where you focus on relaxation techniques and bonding with the child. So how important would you say a practice of mindfulness is when it comes to pregnancy, both for the mother and the child?
I think it's really important because remember that the child, although we don't often think about it in that respect, the child is so connected to the mums, not just physically, emotionally, mentally.
Feel the connection between the baby and yourself through the palms of your hands, through your breath, through your mind. With each breath in you take, send a positive message to your baby, a wish of good health, joy, happiness.
Number one is I think it takes away a little bit of that sudden reactive attitude, so you become a little bit more mindful. You don't panic so much, you kind of can deal with the situation with a little bit more awareness because you've slowed down your processes. Okay. What mindfulness does, and breathing, it helps you to actually change the composition of your brain. We have like different areas of our brain, and it increases the gray cells in our brain for certain areas, and it reduces the stress response. So while the response that is connected with cognitive and emotional balance is increased, the part of the brain that deals with stress, when you in the fight and flight syndrome, is reduced. So what happens is you're able to deal with circumstances in a more placid and calm way without getting overly excited and nervous about everything. Because when you react in that manner, you're probably going to do the wrong thing.
Watch the breath as you become more and more mindful of the beautiful baby you carry within you. Babies are a blessing. It's a joy to be able to carry one.
I think parenting never stops. I'm
Yeah.
I've got a 22-year-old and 18-year-old, and it never stops. And sometimes I find it hard myself trying to be mindful because everybody's driving me around the bend. Saying that, I think that the practice of mindfulness will allow the mom, it gives her that mental strength to be able to process what's going on, to be more aware of the circumstance as it presents itself, and to be able to deal with the circumstance without getting agitated and unnecessarily worried. First time parenting is always very, very difficult, and especially if you have nobody around, to have that strength not to panic, not to
And reduce anxiety
reduce
during a time which can be
stress.
quite
It's very
anxious,
stressful,
yes.
and like you say, like every little thing is very worrying for a parent. The sleeping, you're watching your child breathing, you know what happens as a parent, you're watching every move. So in a way, I think like being mindful will help you take a step back and just be a little bit more, objective, and look at it from a different pair of eyes, so to speak, so you can be a bit more calm and control about your reactions, and that will help you deal with everything much better. And if you're mindful, and your reactions will be much more calm and controlled, and that will reflect on the child. And as the child grows, the same. If you're going to be agitated and anxious and angry all the time because you're worked up, then your child is going to be reflecting that back to you.
And at the end of the day, as parents, we are our child's first teacher, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that it plays a very important role. Yeah. You're just so cute.
He's a happy boy.
So happy.
He's a happy boy.
Yeah.
Hello, you. Hello.
Say hello to Anna. Say hello. Do you remember?
Hey, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so grown up.
So during my pregnancy, I was practicing hatha every, 2 or 3 times a week, and I was using all the mindfulness and Raj yoga that I'd been taught and I'd basically grown up with, basically every day. It really helped. I was a student at the time, second year, so finding out was quite stressful, and I think it would have been a lot more stressful if I hadn't had the support systems, but if I also hadn't had the practice and being able to just watch myself and meditate in the mornings. Going through my pregnancy, it really helped because I was able to stay calm despite the stresses of uni, and with my labour, I saw a huge difference because I managed to just breathe through a lot of the pain. I did use pain relief, but it was very late on, and I know that I was aware, quite acutely aware, for a lot of the labour. I know that there were periods where I went to sleep for a little while and then came back and I had to go through the contractions, but generally up until my actual delivery, I was very aware of most of what was going on, and I think a lot of that was to do with the fact that I had my mum there going, remember your breathing, your breathing, and I could watch my mind and go, right, this is the next step now, what are we going to do, and stop myself and look at what I was going through. So that really did make a difference.
So it must have been a challenging time for you because you were a student at the time, so you had all that to contend with. So and when one becomes pregnant, it's a life-changing moment for anybody. So there's always going to be a challenge for each individual.
But it was a very unexpected pregnancy. I was using contraception at the time, and it was a big shock. All my plans sort of went out the window, quite literally, and it was a very big mental adjustment. But I did sort of meditate every day. And it really helped me just sitting there in the morning, even when I couldn't control my thoughts, just watching them and going, it's okay to feel like this. It's normal. It makes you a normal person, and just don't get angry with yourself. This is the plan. This is the way it's going to go.
Yes. How do you think it would have been if you hadn't had this practice? Probably a difficult question to answer, really.
I don't know any students who are pregnant. I don't know any students with babies. At least not firsthand. I do know some from online, but knowing the stresses of university for my friends who weren't pregnant and how much it affected them and how it affected me, I still think I coped quite a lot better despite also being pregnant than a lot of my friends. So I do think it does make a very big difference, and it really did help me cope with everything and enjoy myself and make the most of the time that I had to study, but also to then have a social life and everything else.
Well done. That's an achievement.
No, it was quite difficult, but it was worth it.
Because when I came into mindfulness, or I call it meditation, or contemplation is more like it in the beginning. When I came to it, this is exactly the question I asked my master. And I said, you know, I was complaining a lot. I didn't like what I was doing. I wanted to be back in Hong Kong. You know, all those complaints. I should be here. The grass is always green on the other side kind of thinking. And he said to me, first thing, stop complaining, accept where you are. Love where you are. Okay. Okay, then he said, purify your mind. What does purity mean? Neither white, neither black, neutral. What is water? Pure. Babies, they're pure. They cry when they're hungry, when they need changing, right? They're pure. Purity of mind just means being in the moment, really, reacting naturally, you know. But as we grow up, our head becomes so hard, like in that we have so much ego that we act so abominably sometimes. You know, we don't follow our heart, and we're not natural anymore.
Yeah, we lose that connection with the heart.
We lose that connection. So we can be quite hurtful. So anyway, that's what he said. Focus, purify the mind, stop complaining, love where you are. Okay, that's the work.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how do we impart this knowledge to our children? How do we give children the tools to, you know, start life off in a mindful way and to, you know, take these practices with them into adulthood?
By being the example. Children don't work well with lecturing. You got to be mindful. You got to watch this. They don't do well at all. They will rebel. By being the example. It's the only true way children know. When they watch, they observe. They're so clever. And talk to them. And also, when a parent makes a mistake, I think it is very important, not just for the children to apologize when they make a mistake, for the parents to also. So the children learn in the future to also realize when they've made a mistake, ask for forgiveness. It's good for them.
Yes.
Because that ego doesn't go,
Yeah.
I don't want to admit I'm wrong. I don't want to admit, which is what's happening to kids today, because we let them get away with murder.
Why don't we do a mindfulness exercise before we start, so we both get in the zone? Okay, so get your palm out, your hand out. Get your index finger, put it here. So you can close your eyes, breathe in through your nose, and lift your thumb, and then breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in again, through your nose, out through your mouth. Repeat it again. And out. One more time. Out. And this time, deep breath in. And breathe out as if you're sighing. Mindfulness in schools, when we're actually working with the young people, we have to make it very playful and very creative. One thing that we do is we get them to tap into what's going on in a really light-hearted way. So we have something called the monkey mind, and we tell them, raise your hand if you've ever felt sad. They'll raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've ever felt happy. They'll raise their hand. And then we tell them, what if you felt things sometimes that you've never felt before and you don't know why you're feeling them? Raise your hands, and they'll raise their hands.
Yes.
And we tell them, okay, now that you know you feel all these different emotions, realize that you have a monkey mind. A monkey mind makes you think about the past, a monkey mind makes you think about the future, but not about the present. So it's all about movements and gestures and stuff. And then we do a little song, so I'll get them to do a little dance and a song with me, and then we create this song called, Hey You Monkey Mind, You Are Not the Boss of Me. I can choose. I can choose. But then each class is different, so they all make different kinds of dances and moves
they make it fun.
to take ownership of it. And the reason why we do movement is because memory and movement are intertwined. So once they do something physically with action, they're able to recall it in their memory. So when they're in a space where they're experiencing some difficulty or they're experiencing some sadness, they'll talk to themselves and then they'll do the little dance in their room, you know, hey, you
Yes.
monkey mind, you're not the boss of me. So then it immediately, you know,
It's a
perks them
trigger.
up again. It's a trigger to make them realize that they can take ownership of how they're feeling.
And we can really feel nature around and quietness, beautiful bird sound. We can really calm down here and start thinking of many things that we never have time. I'm organizing summer camps, mindfulness summer camps for children to get them a little bit closer to nature and to themselves. Always, this can disappear. I'm just showing you. You see, you have a middle. So then you will know. See how amazing structure. And then we can start just making circles. So imagine that I have the, I try, no? See what I mean? Then you change, because you can play and changing.
Does someone have a bigger one? Oh, where's the paintbrush for this? Can I
For
borrow
what?
this one?
I'll put it there, okay? All the workshops are going to happen in EcoSpirit is all about mindfulness. We do some music, sound therapy. The jambes will be the horses, no? Like running horses, kind of sound, no? Similar. So the horses, we will do the horse shoe, okay? The flute will be the bird, okay? So we're gonna just draw simple a bird, no?
That's not making a lot of noise for this.
Fish as
Like this.
dance, eco art. We have horses, so we're getting, you know, more beautiful animals with respect, and we're trying to get the confidence to know them more and in a better way. Beside the workshops, we're also learning about how to eat better, because I think the food is also important. So we're growing our vegetables in our garden. Children also have workshops to plant and know where the vegetables are from. And then we're preparing our meal together, trying to eat simple as possible. In the same way, we're getting to the subject that the most important, I think, is to live simple. And living simple is to have less, and that's the project about.
Who am I to dictate to you the way you should live your life according to my limited perception of knowing you? Allow you, if I want to work well with you, or if I want to have a good relationship with you, may I enable you to flourish in all the ways that are important to you, rather than me dictating to you how I feel you should live your life. And this is an important message for parents to children, because when I was younger, you know, we were in the generation whereby, you know, you had to live a certain kind of life and you had to follow a certain kind of career path. I'm grateful for my parents, because then when, through a bit of rebellion, they actually accepted that, you know what, this is a life that I want to live. Until this day, they're extremely supportive, which I'm very grateful for. But it's very easy for parents to dictate to their children what they think is good for them, but they are not their children. Their journey is very different to their children's. Their children's journey is meant to be one kind of path, the parents another. So it's very important for parents to enable the young people to make constructive decisions that they feel are meaningful to them. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't talk to them or you don't discuss things with them to identify what it is that they're really passionate about. Again, it goes back to not making impulsive decisions and parents holding that space to make sure that the young child has assessed what it is they want to do with themselves, but not imposing your view of how you think they should live their life. Rather, ask the right questions to tap into what the young person feels is meaningful to them. Because at the end of the day, we realize if 30 years later I've lived a life, I've followed a certain career path which doesn't make me happy, the resentment will go back to the parents. And I've seen this from people who are my age, people who are older, and people who are younger. So the last thing you want to do is to have that relationship affected between the parent and the child because the child feels they have been dictated to.
On the emotional side, are you anxious perhaps? Do you have any kind of fears? Do you get nervous before a test? Do you get stressed out? And inevitably somebody or other, you're already starting to see faces change. Could you benefit from having more focus, more clarity, better memory? I've already engaged them. And then I normally go on to explain, the one thing that grips every single teenager is their mobile device or perhaps a tablet. So I always use that example. I compare that to the human brain. And I always tell them the brain is no different from your computer or your tablet or your phone. If you've got 20, 25 apps running in the background, what's going to happen to your device? Is it going to run efficiently? Or is it going to freeze? Perhaps it even crashes. And the brain works exactly the same way. So when we're having, the human brain has about 20 to 40,000 thoughts every day. And that's a lot of thinking. And most of the time we're not acting. We're actually thinking on things that we want to act upon, but we're not actually acting. So the problem is not so much the thinking. The problem is the emotions that these thoughts automatically translate into. So when you're thinking about things that have happened in the past, because that's how the brain, we don't normally remember and we don't dwell on things that were exciting and happy. We normally dwell on things that have hurt us, on anger, on frustration. And if we go back and we keep wallowing in the past, then inevitably that causes depression. If we have always thoughts about the future, things that are still to come, we're always hypothesizing about the future, normally that tends to give us a lot of anxiety. So I bring that back into the class and explain that to them. And mindfulness then is a way to shut down all those apps. All these thoughts and emotions are like all those apps running in the background, and they're slowing down your processor, that are stopping you from concentrating, that are stopping you from having a good night's sleep, that are stopping you from memorizing, from good decision making. So just by shutting down all those apps. Also, with mindfulness, what we're also doing, it goes even deeper. What we're doing is we're literally unplugging the system, rebooting, and regaining control over the mind. And that's how I explain the whole concept to them. And that normally helps them to want to know more and to actually want to know about the techniques.
We know what it is. The problem is technology. The communication is lost. That humanness is lost. So they're developing lots of anxiousness, anxiety, because everything is done through the tablet or an iPhone or whatever it is. So all the and it's too much. It's too much information all day long, all day long. They have no quiet time. So I have had a few teenagers that I love to talk to. I love teenagers. I just love them. I tell them the truth as it is. I said, look, you're forgetting, nowadays you forget to take your coat. Why? Because you're on the iPhone. You forget this, you forget that, you feel that I said, and you're only 14 and 15. I mean, dementia should happen when you're really old, if it should happen at all, shouldn't. Yeah. I said, do you want at 20 to have this kind of a mind? Tell them the truth. So it's up to you. I'm not asking you to take away these instruments, but what you do is less time. And those that do sport, again, activity, etc., they're less time with that anyway. Right? I think all schools should ban, at least phones from school. Now I know they work on computers, but they're doing some creative work. But phones and more physical. Teenagers work well with, doing physical activities because they got so much energy at that age. You should be teaching me, You're a new generation. You need to make the world go forward. I trust you. Trust them. I think we put down teenagers too much. Trust them. Trust them more. Love them more. Talk to them more. It is a different generation. Now, we did that for our parents. I freaked my parents out, being hippie. Really, I did. My poor parents. What did they think? And now this is the same.
Yes.
You see? It's a new generation. We have to accept many things so that they can accept many things.